There is something about being alone on a rainy night that makes the world feel smaller, quieter, almost safe. The road stretched out ahead of me like a black ribbon. No other cars, no distant headlights, just mile after mile of empty asphalt disappearing into the dark. I checked my phone, no service. Great. I was somewhere between the city and nowhere. The last sign I passed said the next town was 14 miles away. My fuel light blinked at me like it was warning me of more than just an empty tank. That's when I saw it. A gas station. Or what was left of one. It stood on the side of the road like an old photograph frozen in time. The sign above it was barely lit. One tube of neon buzzing faintly, flickering like it might give out any second. The building itself looked small, almost too small for a real gas station. The paint was peeling, and the glass windows were clouded over with grime. But I didn't care. Gas was gas. Relief washed over me as I pulled up next to the pump. I turned off the engine, letting the silence settle for a second. But something about that silence was wrong. Usually, at night, even an empty gas station has a hum, the buzz of the lights, the faint music from the counter radio, the chug of the refrigerators inside. Here, nothing. Just rain and the faint creak of the pump swaying slightly in the wind. I stepped out of the car. The air was colder here, and that's when I noticed him, a man leaning against the wall just to the left of the glass door. He wasn't doing anything, not smoking, not looking at his phone, just watching me. His face was half in shadow, but I could see enough to notice the edges of a smile. Too wide, too still. I glanced toward the counter. No one there. The register light was on, but the stool was empty. I told myself not to overthink it. Maybe he was just another customer. Maybe the cashier was in the back. I started pumping gas, keeping my eyes on the numbers ticking up on the display. That's when I heard him. Need help? His voice was low, almost too low, like it didn't belong in the air between us. I looked up. He was closer now, standing only a few steps away from the pump. I forced a polite smile. No thanks, I'm good. But he didn't move away. He just kept walking toward me. Slow, deliberate. His hands were shoved deep into the pockets of his jacket, and with each step, his head tilted slightly like he was studying me. That's when it hit me. There was no sound from the store, no hum from the coolers, no buzzing lights, and no cars. Not a single vehicle except mine. This gas station felt like it had been forgotten by time itself. I reached for my phone in my pocket, but before I could unlock it, he spoke again. Phones don't work out here. I froze. My fingers hovered over the screen. How do you know that? I asked. He just smiled that same too wide, too sharp smile and said nothing. The pump clicked, the sound startlingly loud in the stillness. My tank was full. Something in my gut screamed at me to leave. I didn't bother with the receipt. I didn't even glance toward the store again. I just walked back toward my car, my keys clenched tight in my fist. But as I reached for the handle, I heard rapid footsteps behind me. I spun around. He was right there, just a few feet away. "Where you headed?" he asked, his tone casual, but his eyes locked on mine like a predator watching prey. I didn't answer. I slid into my car and slammed the door shut. The second the locks clicked, I started the engine and floored it. In my rearview mirror, I saw him standing in the rain, watching me drive away. He didn't move, didn't chase, but that smile stayed fixed on his face. I drove fast, faster than I should have, the wet road blurring under my headlights. My hands gripped the wheel so tightly they ached. It wasn't until I saw another set of lights ahead, another gas station, brighter, alive with movement, that I finally eased up on the accelerator. I pulled in, parking right outside the glass doors. Inside, two clerks were chatting with a couple of customers. The sound of music and the buzz of fluorescent lights felt like stepping back into the real world. I walked in, trying to sound casual, but my voice shook as I told the clerk what had happened. The moment I mentioned the location, his expression changed. His eyes darted to the other clerk, then back to me. "That place," he said slowly, "has been closed for years." I laughed nervously. "No, I was just there. I filled up my tank." He shook his head. 5 years ago, there was a murder there. Clerk was killed. The guy who did it was never caught. I turned to look back through the glass doors at the dark road I'd just driven in from. The rain had stopped, and in the reflection of the glass, just for a second, I thought I saw him standing under that flickering sign, still smiling. That's where I was curled up on the couch, binge watching my favorite show, the storm outside just background noise to my comfort. And then I heard it. Knock, 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 sharp, hollow, unmistakable. I glanced at the clock. 11:47 p.m. Weird. I wasn't expecting anyone. I muted the television and listened. Nothing. Maybe I'd imagined it. The storm could have made something shift in the hallway. Still, curiosity got the better of me. I padded over to the front door, bare feet on the cool floor. I looked through the peephole. Empty. Just the dim hallway, light buzzing faintly. I chuckled under my breath, shaking my head. Get a grip, I told myself. I'd barely turned back toward the couch when it happened again. Knock, knock, knock. This time, louder. I froze. It wasn't my imagination. The sound was deliberate, rhythmic, patient. I looked through the peephole again. Still no one. I opened my mouth to call out, but the words stuck in my throat. Something about the air felt heavier, and that's when the lights flickered. The apartment went completely dark. The only light came from the occasional flash of lightning through the window, throwing strange shadows across my walls. I stood frozen by the door, heart pounding in my ears. Then a buzz from my phone in my pocket. A text from my neighbor Kyle. It read, "Don't open the door. I saw someone standing outside your place, facing the wall." My breath caught. I reread the message twice, hoping I'd misunderstood. Nope. Someone was out there. I pressed my eye to the peephole again. Still nothing. Just that dim light flickering now. But the shadows on the wall looked wrong. Like something was standing just out of view. I stepped back from the door. My hands shaking so badly, I nearly dropped my phone. That's when I heard it. A whisper. Low, garbled, like someone mumbling into the wood of the door. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone, it was almost like a song, slow and deliberate. Then silence, complete silence, the kind that makes your ears ring. I dialed 911 with trembling fingers, keeping my voice low as I explained the situation. The operator told me to stay put. Help was on the way. Those 10 minutes felt like hours. I didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there in the dark, listening. At one point, I thought I heard footsteps moving slowly away down the hall, but I didn't dare check. When the knock finally came again, it was followed by a voice. "Police, open up." I unlocked the door, with relief flooding my chest. 2 officers stood there, flashlights cutting through the dim hallway. They searched the entire building, every corner, nothing. One of the officers came back to me, shaking his head. "Whoever it was, they're gone." I nodded, trying to convince myself it was over. But then I saw it. On my front door, carved into the wood, were 3 words. "I saw you." The grooves were deep, fresh, and they weren't there before. That night, I didn't sleep. Every knock I hear now, even in broad daylight, takes me right back to that moment. And I keep wondering, if they saw me, how close did they get? It was supposed to be an easy night. The kind of babysitting job you take because you've been broke for 3 weeks and you can't afford to say no. The Grant family had just moved into town, a tall 3-story house in a quiet suburban street. Too quiet. The kind of street where porch lights felt more like watchful eyes than warm welcomes. The parents were rushing out the door when I arrived. Mrs. Grant, with her fur coat swaying like a shadow, Mr. Grant fumbling with the car keys. They spoke fast, their smiles too tight. "The kids are already asleep," she said. "Don't wake them. Television, snacks, whatever you need. Just keep the doors locked." It was the way she said it, not lock the doors, but keep them locked, that made something shift in my stomach. The door clicked shut. Their taillights faded into the dark. The living room was almost too perfect. White carpet, glass coffee table, one of those flat-screen TVs that looks like it's swallowing the wall. A bowl of untouched popcorn sat on the counter, still warm. I sat down, wrapped myself in a blanket, and flipped through channels. It was just past 9:04 p.m. when the phone rang. An old cream-colored landline in the corner, the kind you don't see much anymore. Its ring was loud, metallic, slicing right through the sitcom laugh track on the television. The caller ID said, "Unknown number." I picked it up. "Hello?" A man's voice, low, rough, like gravel in a blender. "Check the basement." The line went dead. I laughed nervously, trying to shake it off. Probably a wrong number, or some prank kid using a spoofing app. But as I sat back down, the faint hum from before the one I thought was in my head got louder, almost like it was coming from below the floor. I muted the television. The hum stopped. 5 minutes later, the phone rang again. Same unknown number. I answered. "Look, whoever this is." The voice cut me off. "He's already upstairs." This time, the voice wasn't gravelly. It was breathing. Wet, heavy breaths between words, like someone speaking through a mouth half filled with water. My throat closed. I turned toward the staircase, expecting to see, I don't know, a shadow, a face, something. Nothing. The house was too still. Not quiet still. The kind of stillness that makes your ears ring because the air feels wrong. I grabbed the heaviest thing within reach, a brass lamp, and started toward the stairs. Each step on the white carpet felt louder than it should, like the house was holding its breath with me. Halfway up, I froze. From somewhere above, faintly, I heard it. Drip, 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 like water falling into a sink, but slower, too slow. I turned back, my instinct screaming, "Leave!" But before I could move, the upstairs bathroom door creaked. Just a fraction, just enough for me to see darkness between the frame. Then it shut. Quietly, I ran, not up, down, straight to the living room, lamp still in my hand, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. 911. What's your emergency? There's someone in the house. I'm at 1748 Waverley. A soft click from the hallway. I turned. The basement door was open. I swear it had been closed when I got there. A narrow stairwell led down into pitch black, and from the dark came a sound I will never forget. It was the sound of someone whispering, but so fast and wet it didn't sound like words anymore. Like they were trying to push their voice through the cracks in their teeth. The dispatcher was still talking, but I dropped the phone. The whispering stopped. Something stepped onto the first stair. I bolted to the front door. The knob wouldn't turn. Locked. From the inside. When I finally managed to yank it open, blue and red lights flooded the street. Police stormed in, guns drawn. "Upstairs," I shouted. "He's upstairs." 2 officers took the steps 2 at a time. A third one stayed with me, his flashlight sweeping across the hallway. It landed on the landline phone. "Did you say he called you?" "Yes, twice." The officer picked it up, examining the cord. His brow furrowed. "This phone isn't connected to an outside line." My mouth went dry. "What?" He looked at me. The calls were coming from inside the house. Upstairs, there was shouting. The sound of a door splintering. They dragged him out, a man, barefoot, skin pale like wet paper. His hair stuck to his face in greasy strands. His mouth hung open too wide, teeth sharp and uneven, his lips moving like he was still whispering to himself. One of the officers muttered, "We've been looking for him for weeks." The man turned his head toward me, eyes wide and gleaming in the flashing red-blue lights. And then he smiled. "You never checked the basement." Outside, as they shoved him into the back of the police car, I glanced toward the house. The basement door was still open, and from the dark came the faint sound of children's laughter.